Why would we be talking about the Caribbean? There is somebody that's going to be experiencing some Caribbean temperatures later today.
That's right.
Yeah.
President Biden heading to St. Croix, to the Virgin Islands, to escape the mounting crises, the U.S. troops being attacked in the Middle East, the southern border, which is on fire, and, of course, possible impeachment looming as the House looks like they're moving forward on the inquiry. And to be fair to the president, he has gone for many years to the St. Croix to ring in the new year. It's just, it's that age-old question, and other presidents have faced it. You know, when is the situation for the country in dire enough, you know, cases that maybe you shouldn't be seen? Maybe it's a bad look to be on a beach in the Caribbean, a luxury that many Americans and us right now can't afford, while these things are happening, particularly the border and overseas in the Middle East.
Yeah, I don't mind somebody going on vacation, taking the time they need. At his age, he needs more time. That's not a hit against him. It's true. He needs to rest. But I think he's over 400 days or close to 400 days of vacation so far in this term. That far surpasses President Trump in his entire first term. It surpasses President Obama in both of his terms. And so if you're going to take a vacation, maybe make sure the house isn't burning before you leave it, you know?
Yeah, so you're right, Joey. This is, he's already spent 411 days on vacation. Former President Trump spent 381 days his entire first term. Obama even less, only 328 days over 2 terms. Although I say only, that's a lot of vacation for just 4 years. I mean, we certainly don't get that. And that's the thing. I mean, this is a great time of year. The week between Christmas and the New Year's is such an awesome time because most people just get to hang out. But the president isn't most people. And this happens every single year where there is some major event that takes place and then the president is off to vacation. He did the same thing last year. There was a big snowstorm and he got all the negative headlines for it. I was speaking to one woman. She was a Israeli-American citizen. And she said, this was a couple weeks ago, that she doesn't think the president should take vacation until every single American hostage is returned home. And I thought that was a great idea. That idea goes beyond politics, but politically as well. Imagine that statement saying, I'm not going to go on vacation. I'm going to work for these Israeli-American citizens. These American citizens are being held hostage. I won't sleep until they are back home.
Well, I think he's going to sleep. I think he's going to rest. I think he's going to spend some time in the Caribbean. But I guess he needs to worry about what comes next when he gets back from vacation.
Well, he's facing impeachment.
Yeah, an impeachment inquiry that now Republicans in Congress are starting to talk about impeachment itself. So to take people back here, what Republicans have not done a great job of explaining is that impeachment inquiry, really their messaging has been that this is their investigative tool, regardless if they want to impeach him or not. If they want to get some of the answers they really need that the Justice Department seems to have fallen flat on, they need to start this inquiry to move those levers and have that mechanism. But one of the ones leading the charge, Representative James Comer, had this to say about what may come next.
I think most Americans realize that something stinks here. Most Americans realize that we've provided bank statements as hard evidence, statements that show the Bidens have received well over $20 million from our enemies around the world, and they can't answer a simple question: what did you do to receive the money? They also know that Joe Biden stated during the campaign he never met with any of these people who sent his family money, and that he had a wall between the government and his family's shady business scheme. We know that he communicated with every single person that he said he never met with that sent his family millions and millions of dollars around the world. So the American people know something stinks here, and that's going to be a problem for Joe Biden moving forward. Not only are his policies a disaster, but the American people think he's a crook.
Yeah, those are pretty direct words there. In other words, what he's saying is, as they get information here, he believes that the American people are going to see that our president has taken money in either an unlawful or unethical way. And I think that's just something, let's sit for a second and think about that. That as a leading member of Congress, someone who is partisan but is leading in a really important effort, saying, hey, listen, I think this president is so corrupt that we're going to be able to prove it, and it's going to be a big deal.
There's been calls that this is a fool's errand. Right? Critics say that this is just tit for tat because Trump was impeached. Now the Republicans are going after him. And what Comer's laying out there, he's the chairman of the Oversight Committee, right? Remember, they subpoenaed, they called Hunter Biden up there. He didn't do the deposition. Instead, he held a press conference. In that press conference, he said a lot of things, which a lot of defense lawyers said he shouldn't have said. But the one thing you didn't hear from Hunter Biden And what James Comer keeps hitting on is you didn't hear Hunter say, my dad didn't benefit. And Americans have grown frustrated with this pay-for-play scheme it appears that this family, led by Joe Biden, has been doing for years. And that is why they consistently stay and move forward on it. It's not his policy on the border or his policy in the Middle East or any other policy for that matter. It's really the focus on really what this family has done and have they benefited politically as a result.
Yeah, so all of that is going to play out in 2024. And then you have Donald Trump on the other side, of course, with his 91 federal indictments. So there'll be dueling court cases involving the Biden family and Donald Trump. Back to President Biden being on vacation starting today. Again, I understand that, the people all go on vacation. This is always the criticism that takes place. But there is a lot that's going on this week and right now where the president could have said maybe now is not the time, especially when it comes to, like you were just talking about, foreign policy. Iran nuclear weapons is a big headline this morning. Iran just tripled its production of nearly weapons-grade uranium. They're at 60% purity right now. 90% is weapons grade. And to put that into perspective, the Iran nuclear deal of 2015 capped uranium enrichment at 3.67%. So maybe that's another reason why the president should stay home, even if it's just optics. They always say, you could work when you're on vacation, but just optically, it would be better, I think, right now for the president to be in the White House.
If I were the president's advisor, I would walk in there and say, Mr. President, you're the commander-in-chief. You have an American critically wounded. If he dies or any other in these repeated attacks, that's the red line. A dead American has always been the red line.
And there's one in critical condition right now.
There's one in critical condition. That's why you don't get on a plane and head to the Caribbean when you've got a critically injured American with an increase. Look, you know this better than anybody. Those that do us harm, in this case the Houthis that keep unleashing 100+ attacks, they are not listening to what America says. They're watching what America does. And nothing we've done has deterred it. So with increasing attacks coming and with an American critically injured, this is why you don't get on that airplane, because this can change and escalate fairly quickly.
Yeah, what you guys are talking about is optics. It looks bad, but I think what really is being seen here that we're not talking about is if he's going on vacation, that means he believes there's not work for him to do on these topics, which is probably much worse than just if he doesn't care.
There's a whole lot of work to do.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.